My name is Sundén. I'm an assistant professor in media technology at the Royal Institute of Technology, or KTH, here in Stockholm. I've been researching online communities and online worlds since the introduction of the web, more or less in the early to mid 1990s. And one of my most recent projects is the online game World of Warcraft. And I'm particularly interested in notions of embodiment and affect and emotion, sexuality, desire. And I also have a focus on female queer gamers. Screen culture for me has primarily to do with digital screens of games and also of mobile phones. And yeah, I can see several transformations right now. Screens are becoming both bigger and smaller, it seems. So yes, they're becoming smaller, and there is a transformation in terms of mobility and flexibility. Also screens as not sort of flat, fixated surfaces, but as something that you meet people through. The screens of game culture are also being transformed in the sense that the game space might be stretched out into the streets of a city or your living room. So in that sense, flexible. I mean, I think it's interesting to think about the research that has been done on computer screen culture, because in the days of the early World Wide Web, the screen was very much a window and a mirror. A metaphor for not an actual window or an actual mirror, but a metaphor for something that you could look through and into a different world, a different universe, or something that you could see yourself in, your own reflection. And then the research changed in the sense that it became more about the screen as an actual material object that was placed somewhere in the world, somewhere particular, and also the research taking into account the actual use of screens and how people related to this technology, and also what happens with computers when they become obsolete. Today there's a huge discussion on e-waste. My own take on this research on screens and screen culture right now has to do with not so much looking at screens as a metaphor, neither as merely an object, but as an, to me, interesting sort of effective surface. I would say that it's more flexible, and it goes both ways, right? And it might be like a second skin. The skin is an interface for the body to the world, and this could be like a second skin that interfaces the body with this other world and other people. In terms of screen culture, people will be surprised that the screens were so fixed and that they were in one spot and that they couldn't easily be moved around or transformed into your pocket, or that they were not that wearable and not that well integrated really in the environment in a more sort of seamless manner. So I think that's one thing that will strike people 50 years from now. Of course, the question of power is very relevant, especially in terms of the power between game developers and the gamers or the players themselves, sort of the player community, because you have community generated activities that might go right against the grain of what the designers had in mind. So there's a bit of a power struggle, but I wouldn't go so far to say that this struggle is on equal terms, because of course the game developers and the designers have a lot more at stake. I mean, they are the more powerful player here, but there is at least some opportunity for players to do things that the designers had not anticipated, and hence there is perhaps what you would call a power shift. Most of the ways in which media technologies are being used are part of sort of people's everyday life, and in that sense not that exciting, because they were exciting at the point, right? But I think, again, to go back to this previous question about power shifts, that the most exciting thing, I think, is when the users take the technology and use it in a way that it wasn't intended to be used. That's exciting to me.